That's Jane's big eye down at the end.
Hi, guys.
Right?
Hi.
Hello.
Okay, Nikki's big hand is at 7 o'clock. TV. Good evening. Welcome to the October 8th, 2024 Murraysville Planning Commission meeting. Please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Turn your microphones on. I pledge allegiance to the
Allegiance to the flag of the United States,
under God,
indivisible,
With
liberty and justice for all.
Jamie, will you please sing the national anthem now?
Yeah.
Patty, will you please call the roll, please?
Mr. Midal,
Here.
Mr. Kearns,
Here.
Mr. Patrick, Mr. Olszewski, Mr. Lemke.
Here.
Mrs. Hoy,
Here.
Mrs. Ling.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. We have minutes from September the 10th. I looked at the minutes. They seem to be. Does anybody have any comments or corrections to the minutes?
I do not.
The planes just.
Plane that slides into the hurricane.
They just.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
I thought they were Navy
All those in
planes, but.
favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Jane, tell Bill to shut the hell up.
It's not Bill, it's my neighbor. We're having a almost hurricane party out there.
Oh, okay. Have a period for public comment. Anyone have anything they wish to bring to the attention of the Planning Commission this time? No? Okay. All right, first item on the agenda is CU 324. This is a conditional use application for excavation in steep slopes and poor soils for the Summer Hill Phase 2 development on Goldie Lane. This is, we have had several meetings on this.
Maybe just a few items. I do know that, one, I'm playing a little bit of catch-up as it relates to this project, but I do believe that additional documents were submitted over the course of the last month. I'm not sure if those documents were revisions or in addition to previous submissions. They were placed in the file folder for this meeting, and I know that the municipality has reviewed that. There are a few items that I believe may need to be addressed by the developer relative to the right-of-way and some of the street termination points. So to the extent that you want me to elaborate on that, I can, or if we want to bring the developer up to discuss anything, I'll defer to the chair.
The meeting was only 2 weeks ago.
Now they're about to get hit with Milton.
They have to have devastation there. Hey, that's
Excuse me.
everywhere.
Thank you, Jane.
I told him to be quiet.
Yes, or leave the room. Okay, we have a memo from Emily.
We do, yes.
You want to just go down through that?
Sure, I can do that. I can pull it up if you'd like, but the engineer tech looked at this project, expressed, I believe, 4 concerns that stood out. One relates to the right-of-way in the southern corner of the property where it meets North Duane Drive. There's a right-of-way that extends up to and into the existing and proposed stormwater basins. The right-of-way for North Duane Drive should be addressed as it relates to the earth movement, which is proposed in the right-of-way. The second concern is...
Could I just comment on that as you go down through that? Mr. Long brought this to our attention. Who's the solicitor for Murraysville. He has offered the opinion that the people on that own the lots on North Duane Drive, I don't know what direction it is, downhill from the Summerhill plan, is that they have rights in there. And he has suggested that one of the things that could be done is to place some sort of a note on the plan. The developer's attorney has forwarded to me a letter. I don't know whether everybody got it or not. That says basically that they don't agree with that opinion, but he's agreed to place a note on the plans. So,
If I could elaborate first, I want to make sure it's clear I'm going to abstain from any voting on this. But we did look into this issue on behalf of the developer. And it was our conclusion that since it's an unrecorded plan of lots, that there are no private rights in that unopened street. We consulted with our underwriting counsel, Fidelity National Title Insurance Company. They concurred with that opinion. And I know Mr. Hergenroder actually had a phone conversation with Mr. Long. And I believe, I don't want to speak for Mr. Long, I think they agreed as long as there was a notation on the plan that would solve that issue.
yeah, I think that just has to be noted as part of the record that note should appear on the plans. And I think the developers agreed to that, yes. Okay, I'm sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yes, both of those letters from each respective council is in the Dropbox, and that is correct, an accurate reflection of both of those letters. The second issue that was brought to attention is the street termination points on the proposed plan. There are two roads, Kelsey Court and Dillon Court, which show dead ends without cul-de-sacs or a turnaround. Under the Murraysville Code and through the feedback of also the fire chief, there were concerns with the lack of a cul-de-sac or adequate turnaround on each of those two proposed roadways.
Go ahead. Sorry to make you have to stand up.
I'm Gary Hall. I'm with the developer. That has been brought up before, and that's something that we would prefer to address during the subdivision and design stages.
Okay.
Because if we're going to look for a variance or anything, that type of this isn't what that's for today, if I'm not mistaken. If we need to make adjustments to those roads and add a cul-de-sac or a hammerhead, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, I think that the only point there, Gary, is that if you have to add something, either a hammerhead or a cul-de-sac, you're going to have to revise your grading plan or lose units. And
We would lose units.
yeah, so that's,
We potentially, but the two roads in question would probably cost us 3 units. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes.
okay. All right.
That's fair, and that was the suggestion of the engineer that that was exactly it, that it may impact the grading plan. So
Okay.
the next item is the reforestation plan. As part of the conditional use requirement, in areas of development with 40% or greater slope, a reforesting plan is required, and to date, that plan hasn't been submitted. I don't know if that is part of kind of the second phase of.
That would, again, come in with the land development and subdivision with all the,
Well, it's part of this conditional use requirements.
this is the first that's been brought up.
I understand.
And the final item are the existing setbacks. As it's noted here, the property line in the northern area of Phase 2 is shown 12 to 14 feet off of some of the existing Phase 1 properties. and that does not meet the proposed required setbacks. So I don't know, again, if there's a response to that, or if this is also the first time that, that's being brought to your attention as well.
First time I've heard that, and I would assume that should have been an issue during the Phase 1 project.
Well, the only thing that's recorded with Phase 1
Is the overall plan.
is the overall plan. So I don't know how that property line was established.
And we're talking specifically,
The dividing line between 1 and 2.
and that's would be up, running parallel most likely with Shirley Lane.
No, this would be behind all the existing units up there. The ones that-
Yeah, correct.
Okay, is that Shirley Lane? Okay.
We can adjust that line, that's not a problem. We can,
Well, yeah, it is an issue, and in fact, I asked Emily to do some digging into it. The problem is, under that zoning district, you have to have, I think it's because they're duplexes, you have to have 30 feet rear yards. Now, your recorded plan that was when you got some of the property off of, what's the excavator up there? Yeah, Matic? Yeah. Your plan says that, where the heck is it here? That it's 50 feet, which I don't know where that came from. It says setback 50 feet between buildings and property lines, which is not, I don't believe is the R3 zoning requirements. So I think you guys are going to have to look into that and see whether it's 30 feet required behind those units on top of the hill or 50 feet. I'm not going to get into that tonight.
and either way, we have the availability.
I know you do. I know you do. It just, so that was an issue that was brought up here by some of the residents up there. Go ahead, Michael. Anything else?
That would be it. That's the feedback from the engineering department.
Okay, is there any members of the planning commission have any questions regarding these items that were just discussed?
I mean, so it sounds like there's still some significant, but not issues that can't be overcome, but there's still some issues out there that need to be worked out. Is that with what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and obviously, again, some of it relates to the next phase of the project. It's not
Okay.
relating to the steep slopes, even though, again, it's going to require, may be impacted by the earthwork.
We understand that there's issues that are still, we're going to have to cover during the subdivisional and development process, such as these, and we understand that. We're hoping to deal with the conditional use degrading, and these aren't going to go away, we know that.
Understood.
Okay, so the planning commission's delved into this quite a bit. It's still, it still has to go before council.
That's right.
Do we have a waiver?
Yes,
We do have a time waiver.
There's an exception.
The applicant did give us a time waiver to get us into, I believe, December, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, all right, so that gives council enough time to do
Correct.
this. So the planning commission can recommend approval with conditions, recommend denial. What is your wishes? I understand Ryan's not going to be part of this.
Well, with respect to the geotech, has everything been dealt with to satisfy the concerns that were raised? I mean, is,
standpoint, yes, but apparently there's a question.
okay.
Yeah,
But excuse me, I'm sorry. But just to be clear, from a technical standpoint, all the issues raised during the review for the geotechnical investigation have been addressed adequately, correct?
Yes, they have.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that because really this is what this conditional use is about. We're dealing with a lot of other stuff here. that's important, and you need to know that moving on to the next step. It's the right way to do it, but
The one caveat I will say is, depending on where that property boundary we've just been talking about ends up, determines where the top of their slope can be. There may be some change in what the grading looks like, but the grading itself is not an issue.
Okay, thank you, Bud.
fair, thank you.
Okay, so again, planning commission, do you have what is your pleasure here? Do I have a recommendation, a motion?
Somebody,
Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't forget.
I'm sorry,
I almost forgot.
I didn't see you back there, ma'am. Did you have some point you wish to bring up that you haven't brought up before?
Before you vote on anything, I just have some questions.
Are they new questions, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
And since last month, the recording never went through.
I'm sorry, say again?
The recording didn't go through for the first 20 minutes, so we lost some valuable information that, I'm sorry, I forget your first name. Bud provided, but I just.
You have to use the microphone, ma'am.
I want to just pass this over, and I'll explain in a minute. Hi.
Could you
Hello
give your
again.
name and address
This
for the
on?
record? Yes, it's,
Okay. Kathy Adesi, 4802 Carrie Ann Lane. I'm in Summerhill Development. And last month I had, we had the recording, and then we did not have, it didn't record the first 20 minutes, and there was some valuable information. I took some notes, but
weren't you here at the meeting, ma'am?
I was here at the meeting, that's correct. Yes. But there were some, when people are facing forward and talking to you,
I know our sound system's not the best.
some of it we can't hear.
Yeah.
So I just have some questions before you make it. I'd like to ask you to please consider the following. There's the plan on the right-hand side. The plan is going to be lovely, I'm sure. But when you're going down the hill of Goldie Lane, on the right-hand side, there's a very steep hill, and this is what the conditional use, and you know what, I'm sorry, I forgot to bring up my sheet. The reason for this meeting tonight is the conditional use related to excavation on steep slopes.
Yes.
And on the report that RU Consulting provided, some of the questions were answered, but some were not. This area potentially could be landslide prone, and I'm only talking about the 5 houses that are proposed and then the 3 as you're going down. And I know last month they asked for the actual drawing so you could look at the plan. So I think it's 8, 9, and 10 that are in question in the plan, the section 8, 9, and then 10 I'm not so sure about. But I mean, I'm up there, I'm looking at the property, and of course, I have no engineering background, so I will defer to you for that. But the cut slopes, it's KU Resources said further, the cut slopes in the proposed development may not be stable. And so my questions are about stability. When they did all the testing, they did it on dry, when it was dry, okay? Well, we just experienced a lot of rain on Sunday here, but I also have friends in North Carolina who lost a lot, and it was a once-in-a-thousand-year storm or whatever. But I'm worried about the fact that there are underground springs in that hillside that you're proposing to cut back on. A lot of underground springs. It's wet a lot there. And I hope I'm explaining this properly, but when the site was evaluated, it was evaluated as a dry site. And maybe Bud can explain if that's been taken care of. And then it says, being landslide prone, we question the stability of the cut slopes and embankment fills being proposed. And further, I'm sorry, I tried to be organized. I have the same thing twice, right? Yep. As part of the evaluation, and you said you didn't have it in front of you last time, so I brought it over in case you wanted to look at it. This is from the 7/1/2024 CU-3-24 file number. And this is the response to the questions that Murraysville asked. And so some of our questions were answered there. But as part of the evaluation, consideration should be given that the top of the failure surface encroach upon the residential properties at the top of the slopes. A failure following the slide plan with the lowest factor of safety currently presented could impact the existing residences and designated easements. We also have a sewer line up there. I'm not sure about a water line. I was up there today, and I was actually behind Mr. Phelps's house there. I walked it. I didn't measure it with a tape measure, but he's got about 22 feet before the land slopes down. A couple doors down, the Mangine home, 16 feet. And then you've got this drop off, and then you're talking about cutting into that hillside. And I'm just really concerned about those first 5 houses and then 3 houses that are being proposed being cut into this steep hillside, and about the stability up above. And then that second question I have, and then I promise I'll be done, is that when this gets cut, if you do agree to it, and they take away all the vegetation, you take away all of the slope there, it's just draining right down into that retention pond. And we also, as Summerhill residents, are shared owners of the, is that correct, Gary? I don't know if we're owners, but we're not responsible for expanding the retention pond when they build the development, the new development, which was something that we agreed to when we had a clarification of cost agreement. But are we going to be responsible if all this water is coming down and all those internal springs going into that retention pond and then draining down into North Duane, where those people live in a very low spot? I mean, it's a really low spot. And apparently, the developer has entered into an agreement with those people that live there, but we haven't. So we have no protection if something happens that water's coming from up above and drains down. I don't know if there's any liability. That's my question. But more importantly, I'm just asking if you consider looking at this plan from a resiliency standpoint. You know, now that we're learning that weather systems are changing and we could get heavy rains, and you're taking away our protection, that the 18 feet or the 22 feet before it drops down and you're cutting into the hillside, what is going to protect those houses that are up above? And I'm just here on behalf of myself, just saying, please, I really would like for you to consider cutting into that hillside as being a risky possibility. And I'm sure Bud will come up and say, oh, no problem, right? You did all the testing there, but you did it on a dry day. But you did find sandstone instead of red clay, correct? Correct. Okay, so that was a positive, right? See, I was listening. So those are my questions, and thank you for, and I hope you'll, I know you got the plan where it's all cut out and you can see how it's going to be cut into the hillside. So it's very close to our Summerhill community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Just in response, you know, that's why the municipality hires a professional engineer to evaluate what the developer has presented. We share your concerns about it. That's why we go through this exercise. One of the things that has, as you just heard this evening, that has come about is that what is shown as a property line may have to be changed because of the setback requirements. Now, I don't think that presents an insurmountable hurdle, It just means that the line may have to be moved and the people up above will get a little more land than what's shown here. Mr. McCutcheon, I believe that you've said before that that up there is in rock.
Correct.
Yes,
The
so-
comments that were referenced before were from my initial review back months ago, and we spent a lot of time with the developer, with their engineer, understanding the site conditions. Come to find out, contrary to the first report, a lot of that is sandstone up there once we really dug into the boring logs. And whether that was done on a dry day or not, those are just determining what soils are there. That has nothing to do with the modeling, all the the land slope stability analysis that incorporates water, things like that. That's all done in the office as predictive models. So we've taken care, or they've taken care of all that kind of aspects to my satisfaction.
Thank you.
I think it's important to note, like Mr. Maital said, that's why we have this section in the ordinance, because we are concerned about it. There are a lot of landslide-prone soils around. I mean, everyone in Pittsburgh who's done development in this area, I think, has probably dealt with it. And are very familiar with it. No one wants to see that happen, for sure. I can assure you that. And that's why the consultant had a geotechnical engineer, and then we had it reviewed by another geotechnical engineer.
And there were additional test holes dug or additional borings done up there?
They did some additional test pits and other things to address questions I had based on that first review. It gave us additional clarification.
Okay.
Yeah, so all we have to go on really is the recommendation and the conclusion that the professionals came up with in reality.
Okay, so again, I pose to the Planning Commission, what is your recommendation to council, who is going to have to go through this exercise all over again?
My opinion is that if we feel none of these changes are major and would majorly affect the grading that we've been talking about it, I think we could pass it on to council with a recommendation.
What sort of recommendation? With conditions or denial or what?
No, recommend it for approval with them, with the conditions that are outlined in.
Yeah, the first condition is right of way, has to be noted on the plan for Duane Drive. The second condition is the street terminations, which the developer said might cost them 3 units. The third is the plan, which is required. And the fourth is existing setbacks. And Bob, you said the original plan says 50 feet and our current zoning requires 30 feet. So those would be the 4 conditions that I'm aware of.
I believe that those are the only conditions that are presently been discussed.
Well, I would make a motion to forward this to council for approval, including those 4 conditions that they be met.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Mr. Lemke abstains. I think I saw another hand out there. Yes, ma'am?
Just one quick question. If the line is going to change before it goes...
You're going to have to use the microphone, please.
Just a quick question. If the line is going to change, how can it be approved before you see what the new plan is? If it's going to have to change, the entire north area is the area we're talking about that affects the Summerhill community, and now we don't know where those are going to be.
Well, I mean, from what I've heard, I don't think it's going to change the grading that much to impact the conditional use, which is what we're here for, which is the grading and steep slopes,
What
yeah.
if it does, and you've already sent it on to council, will they be, can
And then
that be
council-
a fifth condition?
And then council will have to deal with it.
If there's a significant enough change, I think the municipality has the authority to run it back through. If the revision is big enough we could
Right.
run it back through a conditional use process.
Could that
Right,
be number
exactly.
5?
I'm sorry?
You said you had 4, could that be the 5th?
The municipality has that right regardless of the condition being set.
Okay? Yes, sir. Could you give us your name and address, please?
Tom Phelps, 4724 Shirley Lane, Murrysville, of course. Once you do the, remove the trees and they do the excavation, the slope, can you guys assure us that that's not going to affect the top of the wall that we, behind our house, that that's not going to collapse later? And, I mean, is it going to remain stable at the top is what I'm trying to say?
Well, that's what we have heard assurances that it will be stable. And I'm not sure exactly what wall you're referring to, but
Well, it's not a wall, it's my yard. I'm sorry, I said wall, I mean my yard.
Your yard.
The rear of my yard is only about 22 feet from the edge. My house, 22 feet. And I'm worried if you take the trees down and you take the slope down, what's going to happen to the top of my yard there? Is that going to affect that? I don't know that. I'm just saying, can you assure us that that's not going to weaken that area and ultimately have some effect on the house?
we have received assurances that it will not affect your property. I don't know what else I can tell you.
Well, that's okay, you say that, so, and that's good, I accept that. I just hope before you make your decision, which you apparently already have, that
Well-
somebody answers that question, because I have a lot of value in that house.
I'm
As
sure
we
you
all
do.
Of course, and, you know.
Well, you know, let me say this to you. And I know I've seen your face here before, so I know you've been to several other
No,
meetings.
I haven't, sir,
No, you haven't?
No,
Okay,
first
you look
time.
like somebody else then.
first time,
Okay, so
good guy.
what this is going, we're passing this on to council with these conditions. You have a representative council here, she's heard all this. It starts all over again. Okay? And
all over.
and they're gonna listen to the same questions, and I'm sure the lady that spoke before you will be here, as well as other people when that public hearing is heard. There's also a. Do we have a transcript of that public hearing?
Yes, for both evenings, the
Okay, so that-
July and the continuation into August.
Okay, and so council will have all that. All of this information, the questions that Mr. McCutcheon has raised, the responses that that the developers give, it's all part of the record, which anyone can come and
So
see.
you are not approving it tonight? I mean, you're.
We're
passing it
recommending. We are only a recommending body.
A lack of knowledge of procedures, I'm sure, so, thank you.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, there was another. I don't know. You'll have to let Mr. Nesco, the gentleman behind you, would like to speak.
My name is John Sipple, and I live on Shirley Lane, and I want to make it seem like Gary's not a terrible guy here either. I've asked him for a number of weeks to come out to my house and talk to me about the situation. And about 3 weeks ago, he finally did that and came out and talked to me. And my house is the one that's really impacted by where the build is going to be. The thing that helps me a little bit is my yard goes way out, maybe 70 or 80 feet. And so I'm not as concerned about the work that's going to be done, but Gary kind of put my nerves at ease a little bit with respect to basically telling me, that he would work with us, he would let us know what's going to happen, that all the trees weren't going to be removed and it wasn't going to be a wasteland. So, the trees are important to us and they do help with the soil retention and prevent the slides. So I have to give Gary the, best that I can right now to basically see it through. And I do appreciate him coming out to talk to me and giving me the time to make me feel a little bit better about the situation. And I know it's been combative in here a few times, and I've contributed to that too in the past, but I think that with Gary's words and his actions by coming out to show me what's going to happen, I do feel better about it.
Thank you for your comments, sir. And I do want to correct you on one thing. I don't think it's been combative at all. Everybody's been ladies and gentlemen the whole way through. We'll invite you down sometime when it's really combative. Yes. All right. Okay. Ma'am,
I didn't understand, does it go on the schedule immediately, or is?
that'll be up to the chief administrator and council as to when that.
I can answer. No, it won't be next week. So we will have to advertise a public hearing, again, going through this whole process again. It won't be next week's meeting. The following meeting is November 6th. That's likely. We also have meetings on November 19th and December 4th, which is why, as we mentioned earlier, the applicant was willing to give us an extension on the time waiver so that we can make sure that we fit it in and we're able to take all of the public comment as well as the public hearing process and get that completed. So I would suspect that it will begin at the first November meeting, which would be the 6th.
That's for the conditional use only, right?
It's for the same thing that we're here for today.
That's the first part. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just for the Kathy's and other people's edification here, they still have to go through the subdivision and land development approval process as well, although there are not public hearings required for those, I don't think.
I can't recall if it's a public hearing process, but there will certainly be quite a bit of discussion amongst council, and it would be advertised and discussed at a public meeting. But for this process, there does have to be another public hearing, and so kind of restart things in front of council.
Okay. All right, we're done with that one. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a discussion concerning proposed changes to the Murraysville Code zoning. This deals with the general business overlay district. Good night.
Nice.
Mr. Schwartz.
We're not voting on this, right?
You have to go.
I gotta go pick myself.
Thank you for making it.
AJ, the thumb drive isn't working, but I believe I have the documents already. I think I do.
All right, so if you guys remember the last meeting, which would have been August. So we had a series of exhibits. We talked about the map. We started going through the text. We did get a chance to give a briefing to council just a couple weeks ago. And
Did they believe any of that stuff you told them?
pardon me?
Did they believe any of that stuff you told them?
Well,
Not sure where you're going with that.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, okay, so how did that go?
Swimmingly. The request was no apartments. I think I'm paraphrasing, but fundamentally a little bit of a, which is not a surprise. We've heard that before. That fundamentally was the real question of why some of the residential, particularly the higher density. So what we had, Jim was at that meeting, so what we had presented took everybody through very high level, so nobody really was able to drill into specific provisions. It was a briefing meant to be high level. But what we had said is we were coming back to you guys because we didn't get comments from you specifically in the September meeting. So we just wanted to make sure if there are things that we need to address, that we're able to address those. We've internally had some discussions. There may be a little bit of wordsmithing on some of the definitions and things like that, just to dovetail If you guys feel comfortable, what Michael and I had talked about is go back to council so that we then can schedule time to actually go through all the detail. So more than just a briefing. And that could happen once we get out of budget season, maybe before the end of the year. If there are things that we should address, let's talk about those. So I get some guidance in terms of what we should focus on.
Well, this is just for me. You got an adverse reaction to the idea of apartments. And I'm not sure exactly what that means. Are they fearful of rental properties, or, apartments can take on a broad range of ownership types. They can be condominium types where people actually own the units. They can be rentals. I'm not sure.
My remembrance of the specific wording is they can be messy.
They could be what?
Messy.
Yes.
So
There was not really, in my opinion, a robust conversation about it. It was very brief. I think there was maybe one comment made by one council member.
that was the one comment, and there wasn't an uprising to say, what is planning commission doing? Why do we increase density? There was none of that.
Okay.
And whether, yes, Carolyn and I internally have had some discussion. We allow in the overlay some residential options, anything from single family through multifamily. You also allow the PRD. So in some cases, an applicant could file for PRD within the business overlay, and they still have the ability to do apartments because that's in your PRD ordinance. You're just merely referencing what's in the PRD ordinance. So it was a thread that if we need to chase, then we need to have a little bit more discussion in terms of how to do that. But she's absolutely right. There was not any real substantive discussion. That was the comment. You asked, that was the comment. Why apartments?
Okay.
They get messy.
Well, the thing that doesn't make sense to me is, a year and a half ago, we were discussing an ordinance for senior living.
Yeah.
That addressed being able to do apartment-like.
Yeah.
So I don't know why we would reverse course
And not do it.
Right.
Great.
That was actually a zoning change. For the
But it's
Redstone.
still part of, the comprehensive plan there.
That was like a spot
You know, it's-
rezoning.
You're trying to
In that instance, yes, it was.
figure out how to include those types of residential options in one sense, and now we're saying, no, let's not do that.
For the record, it wasn't a spot zone. It wasn't a spot zone. Zoning change.
I'll call it spot rezoning. That's what I'm gonna do. Sorry. I'm
Trying to
gonna
help.
call it like I see it.
Trying to help. We're on the record.
So, well, I was thinking about this a little bit. Is it possible, in your wordsmithing of this, for instance, I could see some places in this overlay district where perhaps R3 type development is not particularly suitable. And I'm thinking like the area down 380 and the Cloverleaf down there.
Yep.
But maybe down here on New 22 by the car guy, maybe that's okay down there.
Yeah, and completely with you. So Carol and I had talked about, even on your 22 example, maybe we put in a provision that says, while you could allow an R3 type, a higher density in a multifamily, not as you get up into the northwest corner of the township, not there. But if I'm on 22, maybe I still get back 250 feet from from the 22 right away. So you're getting commercial development loaded towards the road, and you're not having residential units on that busy thoroughfare, because some of those parcels have the ability to do that. MSA property is another example. You know, there's plenty of depth there to be able to do that. Preserve in that corridor where the veterinary office is and that, and let that remain as a commercial property.
You know, my wife, every time she goes golfing, comes back with this same story. Why can't we have some senior living type living arrangements in Murraysville? And I try to explain to her that the density just is not there, and we don't, it's very difficult to come up with something that's affordable. And I look at some of the, you know, I drive through some of our plants, even the older ones, and you look at this vast distances between building units and say, what a waste of good ground. I mean, I think I think the idea of people who want, 1 and 2 acre lots becoming a smaller and smaller bit of the population that wants housing. I think that ship has sailed. There's always going to be a demand for large lots, but I don't think it's going to be what it was in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
I would agree. Can't afford to buy just a 1/4 acre lot, let alone to be able to afford a larger lot, like a 1.5, 2 acre.
I mean, we've heard from the guy that doing the thing out there on up by the community park. He's has the land. He's got to develop it. He's looking at $250,000 lots. That's the price of a house.
Lot, yes.
Just a lot.
It's just a lot. So, and I understand the argument about, well, we don't want apartments because it's not viewed as a as something that's desirable. But I'll never forget years ago when somebody came in to do a development in R3. And his comment to the Planning Commission as this was being discussed, and he didn't want it, obviously. I think there were townhouses proposed there. And he says, I have lived all over the world, and I can tell you that transient people are bad. And, well, thank you for your comments, sir, but you just sort of proved, I don't know whether you proved the point or did not prove the point, but we have to figure out some way to make higher density living units acceptable, and I don't know how you do that. But everybody doesn't want, an acre lot or even a half acre lot.
I'm just looking. So when you guys, this purported spot zoning occurred, this was for senior living?
Yeah.
It was for a specific type of senior,
It was
a Redstone Highlands development.
So I'm just looking at the ordinance. You don't really
I'm sorry,
differentiate.
before, we did look at that issue with Redstone, but we actually started developing an ordinance for senior living prior to that.
Because that's where I'm going. You don't really differentiate senior from multifamily, correct?
No.
You throw them in the same bucket. So
Yeah,
Sure.
and the argument was that we heard back from council, well, what's gonna keep it from always being,
Yeah,
you know?
right.
And
That's fair.
that's a good question, but I think the laws
There's ways
of doing that.
yeah. Should
The other thing was, somebody wanted to take and I thought this was what Jamie was referring to, but I understood it now, it's the red zone thing. There was a piece of ground that was zoned industrial, and a guy wanted to come in, it was not a state company, and they wanted to build more of a, not personal care type home. I'm not sure whether it's personal care or independent living.
It was independent. You're talking about the property on Logan's Ferry?
On Logan's Ferry, yeah.
Yeah, you just call out personal care.
Yeah, but, you know, independent living, and one of the things we talked about was, one of the ordinances we looked at was, well, minimum living unit size was 600 square feet, and we heard from a former council person, 600 square feet, that's so small, how can you, well, if you've ever been to a independent living place, 600 square feet isn't all that unreasonable. I mean, how much room do you need for a bedroom, a small kitchen, and a living room? People go on ships now, and they live on ships, cruise ships, and they have like 300 square feet.
That's when the boat actually leaves port, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there one that they're sitting there for like?
No, there's people that we've come across them. They just live on cruise ships.
Tiny houses are a big thing, right?
Yes, exactly. So
what I'm hearing from your perspective, is there consensus, we should keep a little higher density, multifamily type of arrangement?
yes,
Maybe not in all the sub-districts.
right.
That was my thought was
Target,
we could target the sub-district A prime or whichever one that we felt,
that way, I guess, that way.
yeah, whichever ones that we felt maybe we don't want a
Yep.
apartment complex in, we could stripe that from that matrix that you have.
Okay. And then should we call out, trying to make some new definition, new land use type for senior living? Different than personal care.
Well, our ordinances don't touch either one of those categories.
No, that's what I'm saying. Well, you're doing an amendment.
Yeah, why not do it? Yes,
So that in there.
I would think so. You just have to be careful about where it goes.
And how you define it. 'Cause
And how you-
when we were going through that process, there was very specific
Language.
language as to how you comply with
Yeah.
the senior living.
So what you were saying, you started putting an ordinance together.
We started looking at putting an ordinance
Is
together.
that something you can find in Jim's files?
I can look, but probably not right now.
No, not now.
But yeah, I'm not
So if we
familiar with
can-
that, so I would have to look that
We
up.
could get that, we can just start to build on what you guys
Is it a-
already
I'm
did.
yeah.
sure Jim will have it.
Okay. Any other, I think the last time we talked about the map, it was the larger area, if you
Yeah.
remember. It was
Yeah, we,
two versions or two scenarios, alternatives. There really were no other comments coming from council. They were supportive of using the sub-districts, breaking this into pieces and start differentiating, between land use and the different requirements.
I think they wanted more specifics, like you were saying
Yeah, as the next round.
earlier.
I mean,
as
that
the next-
meeting.
As the next step.
Yeah.
We really didn't even take a deep dive into the overlay map
right.
at all. And I think there's a lot more discussion that's going to be happening that's a lot more in-depth.
I noticed the big article that was in the Tribune Review. I read it. I couldn't really tell what happened. Did anybody see that article?
I did.
Yeah, he had reached out. I never talked to them directly. They were trying to get a copy of the file, the PDF or the PowerPoint we were using for the briefing. Well, is there comfort to go back to council to do that more deep dive? If we make some tinkers, that we come back to you, or can we go to council?
I think the devil's always in the details. And I think maybe it's time to start getting down into the weeds. And that way, council then can get their hands around, okay, I don't like this part, and we can start getting some positive feedback, and you'll get plenty of feedback from the citizenry.
Yeah, so again, procedurally, what we would do is have that meeting with council, walk everybody through. They can start a public review process at that time. That's a 45-day. My guess is it'll continue.
I would say you do it. You got to have a lot more details for us to comment on before it goes to council.
So come back to you in November.
Yeah. Does that give you enough time to?
Yeah. Because what we're changing isn't, from my perspective, I don't think it's that significant, assuming that we can find some of the stuff that you guys previously did, and if it makes sense to incorporate that.
I'm sure we could all find, it was all in the Dropbox, just going back.
Yeah, I've heard,
Jim could
stories.
probably find it easier.
I've heard stories about the Dropbox.
Yeah.
So, again, is there anything out of the August materials that we gave you that was any lightning rods, anything that was something that was, we didn't talk about this, where did this come from, or they're just out of kilter that we need to also go back and adjust, revise?
The only thing that I could recall is what I just mentioned about maybe apartments or R3 are not appropriate in all districts.
Okay.
Any other feedback? Any other direction?
No, I think you just start putting ordinance language together and definition changes.
So we'll be amending that.
Yeah.
Right. So for November, I'm going to we'll go through page by page.
Yes.
So if we need to plan a little bit of time to be able to do that, then
That's fine. We can do that.
Let me ask the question, do we have anything in the hopper?
Not that I'm aware of. From a planning standpoint,
Yes.
no.
Okay, so that'd be good.
I don't believe that any other applications came in. Do you know of any?
Yeah, you've had so many conditional use hearings the last few meetings.
Flushed them all out for the time being.
Okay, good. So the timing works out.
Okay. All right.
All right?
Any other thoughts?
Nope. Jane, anything?
Nope, not for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, AJ.
Thank you.
Is there anything else for the good of the cause, Mr. Nestico?
No other items of business for this evening. I think that's it.
Okay.
Next meeting, 12th, is that correct?
Let's see.
Yep.
Okay.
Just to be correct. Yep.
Entertain the motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. You got to be faster.
All right.
Even with the time
Thank you
lag.
all.
All right. Take care, guys.
Okay, stay safe, Jane.
Yeah, so far we're okay.